obviously you know that we had your opponent on earlier, and we've got a set of questions that we'd like to ask you as it relates to manufacturing in the state of Connecticut. But by the way, how are you this morning?
I'm doing very well. Another beautiful morning. It's going to be a great morning to visit as many fairs and festivals.
Right.
There's a garlic festival in Bethlehem. There's a fall festival in Warren, the Holland Fair. So for candidates, we like it when it's a sunny, beautiful day.
That's great. Well, listen, Andrew, let me go to the first question, and that has to do with my passion of the small manufacturer versus the large manufacturer. Everybody jumps up and down, wants to make a big hit with the big guy, and we have to have them. Sikorsky, UTC, these guys, they feed down to a lot of small businesses, yet I'm not sure of the number nationally, but in our state, a significant, and I believe the number's 92%, of all the manufacturers in our state have less than 50 employees. So how would you, winning the congressional 5th District seat, the engine behind job growth, wealth creation, blah, 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 comes from the small companies. How would you focus on the little guy versus the big guy?
Well, I do what I've done in Hartford, which has been to recognize that if good middle-class jobs with good benefits are going to be created, they're going to come from the companies that have 50 or fewer employees. Those are the companies that are going to grow and provide opportunities. So I got in some trouble with Governor Malloy when I think I was one of 5 senators who voted against the First 5 initiative, which was this massive economic development assistance for very big companies. And I voted against it not because I don't want very big companies to succeed, but because I thought we were overlooking the heart and soul of Connecticut's economy, the small manufacturers who are in our communities who don't get assistance at the same level that the big guys get. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we focus undue attention on the big guys at the expense of the little guys. So my approach has always been to recognize that if we want more jobs, we need to support the people that are going to create those jobs, and those are the smaller businesses.
It's interesting. I actually did a calculation that if we took the money that we've spent on the first whatever so far and took all the small manufacturers and small companies and let them hire for 1 year and paid for the entire expense of one employee, I estimated that at least half of those companies would keep their one employee, and you probably would have created more jobs than you would have through the first 5. So I appreciate the answer to that. George, you want to ask Andrew the second question?
Andrew, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, George. How about you?
Good. And going back to that last question, let's not forget the $20 million the DECD has currently for small manufacturers. So there is money available out there, and I know what you meant about the big 5. I totally agree, but let's not leave the little manufacturers behind. There is money available, and that's great for them.
Absolutely, and I supported the jobs bill last year was a much better approach to economic development, in my view, than the First 5 initiative. And I supported the jobs bill, not just because of the help that it offered for small businesses, but also because of its focus on improving educational opportunities to equip workers for the jobs that are there for them, if only they have the skills.
Absolutely. My second question is going to focus on manufacturing productivity. The reports show that the productivity has increased quarter over quarter. We went through our recession in 2009. I think I laid off 60 people, and I had to do more with less. And that's kind of the way we have grown, and most manufacturers have grown over the last few years, is doing more with less. But that's resulted in fewer jobs being available, 35% decline in manufacturing jobs with a total of 68,000. That's kind of been our mantra moving forward, is to do more with less. With that idea in mind, how do you anticipate growing manufacturing jobs in the industry when we're continually doing more with less?
Well, I think that the good news is we've achieved tremendous productivity gains. And so what that means is we are producing more with less. But it's our capacity to outcompete China and India in terms of productivity that's going to give us the competitive advantage going forward. So while we are producing more things with fewer people, the answer is to replicate that and to produce different kinds of things and use our productivity as a strength. Because we have the best workforce, because we have control over our supply chain, because we are located where the products are going to be consumed in many cases, we have the ability to diversify and grow our manufacturing base and to take advantage of the productivity to create more jobs.
Yeah, I think it's our hope that our human resource is outcapacitated so that we're forced to hire if they're at 100% productivity. That's what I'm assuming you're getting at, right?
Absolutely.
But you know, Andrew, tailing on to that, you can be extremely productive and you can be as competitive as possible, but there's just some things that you can't change. And the same question that went to Elizabeth, you know, selfishly looking at our state, and this is a federal job, I get that, but we are the 5th highest state to do business in the United States. Our energy costs, our electric rates, our costs are very high here. You know, how would you work if elected to that seat to help our state, and nationally for that matter, bring these costs down so that they don't continue to deter our growth? You know, forget the fact that we're not a right-to-work state. You know, forget the fact of whether we're business-friendly or we're not business-friendly. People debate that every day. But the cold, hard facts of the costs to operate a business in this state, how could you help to change that?
Well, first, let's remember there are 5,000 manufacturing firms in Connecticut today,
right,
employing 166,000 people.
Correct.
Representing 10% of all the jobs. And manufacturing jobs are the good jobs, the jobs that people want. So I've always said I measure my success as a state senator if the companies and communities that I represent are prospering and flourishing, then I'm doing my job. So I want to go to Washington, D.C., and I'll measure my success by the growth in the economy in the 5th District. The way the economy is going to grow is if we are able to become much more energy independent. You know, the natural gas prices have declined precipitously, and we need to see that translating into lower electricity prices in Connecticut and lower gas prices. Those are factors that will strengthen and propel the economic recovery. And I do agree that one of the things we need to do is to definitely broaden the natural gas infrastructure in this state. There are too many places that are isolated from the ability to tap into natural gas. And one of the things I'm most proud of is Kimberly-Clark is the largest private employer in my state Senate district, and we were able to get them a great deal of support to build a $15 million state-of-the-art cogeneration facility that took them off the grid and enabled them to generate the power that they need. A very power-hungry business making diapers and Kleenex and things like that, and now they're able to generate their electricity and warm their buildings from natural gas, and then have some left over to help the town of New Milford.
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew, the single most competitive advantage any state has, including Connecticut, is their skilled workforce. And you know, any state that wants to grow has to have a strong skilled workforce. And we say in Connecticut that we have a good skilled workforce, but it's aging. We're starting to put programs in place for education, academics, any kind of training to try to build that workforce. I mean, Governor Malloy last year bonded $17.8 million to build 3 manufacturing centers at the community college, which is a huge start. One of the things that manufacturers are not is patient. And, you know, we'd like to see that program or any kind of program accelerated to help us, because we've got a lot of aging skilled toolmakers that are going to be retiring in the next few years. What would you do to help accelerate that process?
Well, what I would do, George, is what I've tried to do as a member of the state legislature, and that's to light a fire under the bureaucracies that necessarily are involved when you get public assistance. It's going to flow through a public agency. But the sense of urgency that you feel to get these programs up and running needs to be felt by the people that are administering these programs. And we need to educate those in government that are overseeing the implementation of these programs how critically important it is to get them off the ground. Because each day that passes that a young person isn't in a classroom learning the skills that will open the doors for them to a great manufacturing job is another day lost. So I think it's the fierce urgency of now, to quote Martin Luther King, that needs to animate all of our decisions around creating a skilled workforce available to take advantage of the many opportunities that await them.
Well, Andrew, would you like to see that training done by the academics, or do you think that more work should be done within tech training type centers run by industry? It's been some of my experience that academics want to control the programs where we lose the focus on the ultimate objective is the job, and industry knows what they want. Academics seem to look for MBAs and doctorates, and I think all that stuff is great. I'm college educated, thank God. But sometimes I think Frank Gallooni's done a great job at his NewsTalk, but I'm very concerned about some of these other community colleges' ability to interface into industry directly and give them a product that they need.
Well, this has to be a partnership. We can't expect the educational system to know the answers in isolation without a lot of input from the end users. And the end users are the manufacturers who are going to hire the individuals coming out of the system. So, we can't expect institutions of higher education to make this work without substantial input from the people that this is going to help, which is the people who are looking for workers. And it's going to help the workers, of course, most of all. But in my view, you can't exclude the people that have been advocating. It wasn't the colleges that were advocating for these programs. It was the manufacturers who knew that they needed a good supply of workers who could take advantage of the jobs that are available.
That's right. That's a good answer. I agree with that. Last question, Andrew. Manufacturing is one of the three wealth creators per Adam Smith. Us manufacturers, we don't mind bad news. We don't like it, but they do. We don't like to invest in our businesses when there's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy now. It's hard to make some commitments to investments when we don't know what's going to happen with the election. Our national debt is out of control. Our yearly deficits are increasing and way too high. There's no formal budget in place. In 1993, Canada went through a similar thing that we're headed toward. And, they were able to come out of it in 4 years by cutting their deficit for 2 straight years, cutting their federal spending by 10%. And they didn't spare any program, including their welfare program. And in 4 years from when they did that, they were able to offer tax cuts to corporations and personal people, residents, and which was a big help to improving that economy. And I want to know your thoughts about something similar that would need to be done, and that includes cutting a lot of our entitlements, which make up 50% of our yearly spend. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first let me say that there's an area that I agree with my opponent. I listened to her this morning, and she does an excellent job conveying her point of view. I agree with her that our commitment to Social Security and Medicare must remain inviolate, particularly for individuals age 50 and older. They need to know we're not going to change the benefits they're going to receive. We're not going to change the programs that they have earned. Where my opponent and I disagree is whether or not a massive tax increase on January 1 will help the economy or hurt the economy. My belief is that a massive tax increase on January 1, as proposed by the president and embraced by my opponent, will result in fewer job opportunities at a time when we desperately need more job opportunities. The people that are going to see their taxes rise substantially, 53% of them are small businesses, many of them manufacturers that run as Subchapter S or LLC corporations. And as small manufacturers, if you have to pay more in taxes, there's going to be less money available to invest in plant and equipment and to hire new people. So I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And Ernst & Young did a study that says we're going to lose 700,000 jobs if the president has his way, and we experience this massive tax increase right when we're trying to get out of the economic doldrums.
Andrew, I don't really think many people understand when you're an LLC, your net income from your business operations flows through your personal tax return. So you're going to be taxed at a higher rate when it's basically business income. It's just the way the business entity is structured. People that are not business owners don't get that.
Well, I'm doing my best to try to educate them, because the reality is small businesses will have less money available to reinvest, to hire people, and to grow the economy, and I think it's the wrong policy. I think we should have a one-year moratorium while we revamp the entire tax code. And that's another conversation. I know we're running out of time, but and the other thing that really needs to be clear is that our country's corporate tax rate is a lot of companies not bring their profits back home.
Right.
Another way
That's a touchy subject in here, but it's unfortunate because we could take this for at least another half hour, and unfortunately, Andrew, we're out of time. And as with your opponent, we want to wish you the very best of luck. I know that Connecticut has two fine candidates to choose from, and wish you all the best in the congressional fifth.
Thank you, Andrew.
the opportunity. Thanks for the service you provide.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'm John Patrick, President and